It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad John, if I could talk right, the Brad and John Show. This is the C block, Charlie block as we call it. Today's date is February 12th, and this is a Wednesday, and there's bad snow, bad weather. I can't even talk, John. Bad weather moving into the St. Louis area, so we'll just mention it that way. Okay, one more time, John. Are you still on 90-second hiatus because of?
No, I just came off break. Yeah.
Okay, one more time. I can't hear it enough.
And I don't think that plastic's going to affect a shark very much as they're munching their way through the ocean.
I'm sorry. That's funny stuff. Okay. John, let's first reveal your credentials, okay? You were a comms guy. Back in the old days, you would be called a PR person or a flack, and your job was essentially to take the negative and turn it into a positive, correct?
Yeah, a lot of bad news stuff. Let's figure out how we can talk about it openly and honestly and put really the best face on it.
Now, John is an expert at that because sometimes on this show I find it interesting that John will go into comms guy mode and he will start spewing corporate jargon, which I always think is funny. Okay, and it's sort of like watching KJP back in the day, not that far back in the day, when she was asked questions and one of her best responses was, I thought, what'd she say? She says, we've been clear about that. Isn't that what?
Yeah, we've been clear. And to be clear, Brad,
yeah, right.
I've been clear about this. She and I are both black lesbians.
Okay, I'm not.
And I think that's why you stereotype me and KJP in the same bucket.
Okay.
And we both like to munch our way across the ocean. You know what I'm saying, Brad? I mean, I'm not into whales, but KJP might be.
Okay. Jeez Louise. Okay.
Everybody with a Subaru hated that joke. Go ahead, Brad.
Do you know they're coming out with a new Subaru that has plaid seat covers in it already? Did you know that? Okay, I'm sorry. And by the
it's
way,
called the Flitch. Go ahead.
By the way, I do own a Subaru, but so go ahead and make fun of me because I do own a Subaru. Okay. So, and also I want to continue with John's credentials. John has written a book which you can buy on Amazon. Plug for your book, John. How do they find your book?
Yeah, you can go to Amazon and I'll quote Brad's promo for the book, which is you can go to Amazon and just look for the name John Combest, or you can go to Amazon and look for stalking, harassment, internet trolling. And it's a book about how if you see someone that's involved in an online dogpiling, an online attack, how to help your friends, or if you've been on the receiving end of online harassment, stalking, trolling, how to really work through that situation.
It's an interesting book. It's been out, a couple years now?
Yeah, end of 2022, pretty much.
Okay. One of the interesting things I like about it is a lot of the chapters give you like real world situations. Not, they're hypothetical, but it's like Jimmy went to work and his boss said, that kind of stuff, okay? And then you go through and you essentially take the situation and you advise readers as to what they should do. Am I correct in that pretty much? Is that
yeah, like how to think through it. Sure, thank you for that, Brad. That's a good way to describe it.
Okay, once again, WWJD, what would John do? John, I'm promoting the Westplex Chamber of Commerce, okay? Mm-hmm. And I've not put a tremendous amount of effort into it, but I'm working it. We have our website, and my whole thing is, you may not realize this, but I'll tell you this up front, and I've got another surprise, which once again, John accuses me of not doing anything for the radio stations, and I surprised him with a Facebook page and a LinkedIn page for our show.
Incredible. It's incredible.
Right, and there's more to come, okay? So I am a small business person, has been since 1984. So this is year number 41 for me as a small business person. And I really identify with small business people. So I'm trying to help small business people. Okay, having said that, I started my own Chamber of Commerce. Now, it was interesting because when I did this, someone who knows me very well said to me, you just can't start a Chamber of Commerce. You have to have a special approval from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And I said, no, you can just one day wake up and start a Chamber of Commerce, which I did. It's called the Westplex Chamber of Commerce. If you don't believe me, you can go there right now and check out Westplex, okay? So I have been going to various events, talking to people about my chamber and stuff like that. But my underlying push is I am trying to help small business people move their businesses forward. What I've done is if you join the Westplex Chamber of Commerce, and this is not a plug, but maybe it is a plug, right now, the first 100 members, and I think we're up to like member number 62 or 63, something like that, they get free membership for eternity, as long as the Westplex Chamber. Now, John would say, well, that means Brad's going to bombard you with marketing messages. He's going to say, hey, you want to upgrade your advertising package to super platinum, click here and pay $999, right? Isn't what that was John's comment?
Yeah, and I would do it in a little bit dumber voice than that too, Brad. Thank you.
Okay. So yesterday, and I won't say which chamber I went to, but I was fully intending of joining this chamber, and this is the second time I went as a guest. I paid my money, I showed up, I started working the room, and I've asked this woman to come on the air, and this is sort of interesting because I see a woman with a young man with her. Now, normally you go to chamber events, there's usually nobody under 30 there, okay? I saw a kid, who looked like he was in high school, actually turns out he's 18. And I'm not going to mention any names, but I went over to this woman and I introduced myself and I said, who's this young guy with you? And she says, it's my son. And I start talking to him and I say, why are you here? And he says, I want to learn networking. I go, really? Why do you want to learn networking? And he says, because I want to go into business. Turns out she's an insurance agent. And then she tells me, and I said to him, are you going to high school? No, I graduated. I'm 18. I said, are you going to college? No, I'm not going to college. I'm learning how to network. I'm going to sell insurance. I'm going like, okay, am I being punked? An 18-year-old kid who's not going to college is at a Chamber of Commerce event learning how to network, okay? So I was blown away, and I told him, I said, look, I'll tell you up front, I have a radio show. I talk to this guy, John, on the air in the morning. I've got a bachelor's and a master's degree. I tell people all the time, unless you're going to be some kind of a job that needs professional accreditations as a degree, doctor, lawyer, attorney, CPA, a nurse, something like that, college is a waste of time and now a waste of money. And his mom says, I agree. He's already passed his insurance exam, whatever that is to sell insurance in the state of Missouri. Okay? At this point, someone comes and grabs my arm. And I look, and it's the lady who runs the chamber. And she informs me that the door is waiting for me to pass through. In other words,
you're kidding me, Brad. You're getting kicked out because does she think that you're using like I can't even imagine her logic. You're trying to undermine what she's doing because you have your own chamber.
She told me that my presence is not appreciated, that I'm in her chamber meeting and I am trying to recruit her members into my chamber. And the bizarre part of this, there are several of her members who are already in my chamber, and she wants me to leave, and she informs me she will refund the cost of my lunch, but I'm supposed to leave. So now here's where it gets interesting. The lady who I'm talking to, the first lady, the insurance lady, continues her conversation with me, and she says, hey, I want you to meet my friend. This is blah, 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 and I'm trying to get him into networking. He's never been to a chamber meeting before. I want you to talk to him about what you're doing. So I turn and start to talk to him. So the chamber lady comes to the other side of me and repeats her demand that I leave immediately. So the guy sort of looks at her and looks at me, and she walks off. And I walk over to my chair to get my coat and my camera, and I start to leave. And the lady says, what just happened? And I said, I just got kicked out of the chamber meeting. And she says, no, there's no way that happened. I go, it happened. I just got kicked out. And the guy says to her friend, yeah, he did get kicked out. She told him to leave immediately. So I picked up I went up to my chair, I grabbed my coat and my camera, and I left. Now, WWJD, what would John do? Okay?
Okay, so first of all, Brad, to your credit, you did the right thing. I mean, you didn't have any sort of a tantrum. You have good impulse control. And that's one of your best traits overall, is that you're not going to fly off the handle. You're not going to make a scene at this particular chamber meeting. For a second, though, we should address the ridiculousness of this. If, let's say, you were at a St. Charles chamber meeting and a gentleman was there from the O'Fallon chamber, I doubt the folks from the St. Charles chamber would go to the gentleman from the O'Fallon chamber, the woman from O'Fallon, and say, hey, you're president of another chamber of commerce. you better get out of here or you might poach some of my members.
Now, let me tell you one interesting aspect of this. Keep in mind, at certain times, I don't know if we had it for a while, but there have been times when I was a member of the O'Fallon Chamber of Commerce where we had dual meetings where it was a joint meeting of the O'Fallon Chamber of Commerce and the St. Charles Chamber of Commerce. In other words...
Yeah. I mean, excuse me, it's almost like it's not exactly reciprocity, but you would think that chambers would work together. Now, I guess what's important here, Brad, so besides commending you for how well you handled this, like with some kind of grace here, to this woman, do you have a history with it? Like, does this woman have any reason to have any sort of issue with you?
Well, there's an interesting story behind that is because we were a member, Shelley and I were a member of this chamber, and I don't know if you want me to get into all sorts of detail on this, but at one point...
Yeah, go ahead, Brad. I think it's important for the context because clearly no reasonable person acts this way.
Okay, but first off, there was one thing I said to her while she was kicking me out. I said to her, I'm trying to help you promote your chamber. And she said to me, guess what she said, John? You can probably figure out what she said, I don't need your help to promote my chamber. So now the interesting thing was
arrogance.
The interesting thing is if you go to westplex.com and you look at the blog on there, I was at their meeting last month and I took all sorts of pictures and posted them on westplex.com plus on my Facebook page and talked about how it was a great turnout for a great meeting. And it was at the I think it was at Whitmore Country Club, I believe it was, and promoting their event as well as me being last month going to the O'Fallon Chamber of Commerce. Same thing, taking pictures, promoting the event. Okay. Once again, I didn't charge them for that. I gave them free publicity because I've said it before. I'll say it again. I know it sounds sort of corny, but this is how Brad is trying to live his life for the rest of my life, which may be only a couple weeks the way I'm going. As the tide rises, so do all boats. Okay? Why is it that we have 4 different chambers in St. Charles County? Can't we all just get along together? Why is it? Because years ago, I learned a very interesting fact about human life. 99% of the wars, what's going on in Gaza right now, what's going on in Ukraine right now, it's territorialism. And you melt that down. Ask anybody who's on the app that everybody is it Home or was it Neighborhood or what's the one that everybody
Next Door.
Next door. Anybody who's on Next Door, I know people who are on Next Door for sport. You know what I'm saying? To the point where
of course
you read all the crazy things, and to the point where I personally have had issues with both of my next door neighbors. Not that I started, but that they started. And it's to the point where most of the time I'm like, okay, whatever. Life's too short, that kind of stuff. Okay, so going back to this situation, it's like, I don't get it. And the crazy thing about it is that what's funny about this is in this meeting, I can point out 3 or 4 different people in that meeting. One of them being Shelley and I, if you listen to us on bs.show, we talk about this all the time. The group started by Angel Magasano called Little Black Book, which is a group only for women. Angel Magasano goes to all the chambers, and what does she do? She's trying to get people to join her organization. I know of guys there matter of fact, there was a guy I talked to yesterday before I got thrown out who's a member of the St. Charles Ambassadors who wanted me to join his organization routinely, where people that I know who are there from the Lions Club, from the Rotary Club. Mike Elam, who was there yesterday, is a member of the Rotary Club, who, if you listen to the latest podcast I put out with him, he brags about how the Rotary Club has helped him so much in his business and personal life and his political life and the whole bit. Once again, as the tide rises, so do all boats. And why is it that if I'm there trying to start another chamber, and my whole deal is, first off, my chamber is free for the first 100 members. And what's funny, I tell people that and people go, there's no way it's free. It's free. And to the point where it's interesting because somebody who's already made a comment about a person who joined my Westplex area, or Westplex Chamber of Commerce, who already has their free FREE ads on this very radio station that they got by joining the chamber. Okay?
Yeah.
No strings attached. None whatsoever. I'm not, and what's interesting, John, I do have a database. I do have a mailing list. I have a MailChimp list on this, but I have never used it. I've never once said, hey, this is Brad, Westplex Area Chamber. Thanks for joining. By the way, you can buy our new swag. We've got T-shirts and hats and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. And helium tank labels.
Right.
So I guess what the thing is, let me interrupt, Brad. So I guess this thing is, this woman feels like any other chamber members or any other group members are little black books where ambassadors can come in and, I don't know, use the group to promote the good work they're doing. But Brad Hildebrand, who is this upstart who's trying to create something new, we can't have him come in because that's undermining us. But everybody else can come in and do their thing.
But John, here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you look at it from using one of the terms that John would use, and matter of fact, this term is new, so John would have used it when he was the PR guy. The 30,000-foot view, right? They talk about the 30,000-foot view.
Yeah, from way up above the big picture.
Right, the 30,000-foot view is everybody has, with their company, or if there's like you're a solopreneur or whatever, you have a pot of money, some big, some small, okay? And you divvy that up accordingly, okay? So I know for a fact that when I go in to talk to an advertiser, potential advertiser, they're probably, and I just had a deal where I put a proposal on something and it got shot down, didn't go anywhere. And once again, that's the risk I take. But the thing is, people choose who they want to do business with, except if you're stuck with like Ameren UE or Quiver River, you can't get another electric company or sewer company or water company America. You're stuck. You're screwed with the utilities, okay? But people choose who they want to do business with. And once again, the idea that and I've said this before, people say, in St. Charles County, who's your biggest competition? You know what my answer is?
Amazon.
No, the Chambers of Commerce. Because
you're right. Yeah.
They're always selling it. Like St. Charles Chamber has a billboard package. You can buy their billboards. They're selling advertising time. And same thing with Cuddleville, Weldon Springs, and I think O'Fallon does it as well too. I don't think Western St. Charles doesn't. And you can buy their billboard campaign. You can be, on you can have your name on their program. You can sponsor. Matter of fact, at one point in time, and I'm not kidding you this, when the new lady came in, Kathy Duck, she was a huge fan of sponsorships. If you went into the boardroom at the O'Fallon Chamber of Commerce, there was a clock on the wall. She had sold a sponsorship to the clock. You could look at the clock and see that was sponsored by Joe's Meat Market or something like that. I'm going like, okay, this is just a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah. And you've mentioned before too, Brad, that when it comes to sponsoring events and meetings, let's use the name of a company. I don't know if they're a sponsor, but let's say a company like a Centene will just renew every year for $5,000 or $10,000 and sponsor one lunch a year, and they don't even think about it.
And they'll never show up. You'll never see.
And they'll never
right.
Their table will be completely empty.
They don't even have a table. I mean, for example, like if you go through the list, I think the St. Charles Regional Chamber of Commerce has 1,200 members. Okay, if they have a luncheon, maybe 100 people show up. And, and those 100 people, those are usually the small business people out there trying to scratch out, a piece of turf for them to make some money, selling insurance, whatever they're selling. But it's not the big guys. Walmart never shows up. Kmart never shows up. Now you do have people that I give a tip of the hat to Bernie Dubray, who is the former superintendent of the Fort Zumwalt schools. I saw him last month at the O'Fallon Chamber meeting. And I even said to him, I said, Bernie, what are you doing? You retired. And I gave him crap about the fact, not crap, good-natured crap about the fact that he was the superintendent for 38 years and his replacement lasted, a year and a half? I think that wasn't the deal that
Yeah, he was in and out right away.
Right. It's like
Bray left when you and Shelley were still on the air, I remember, because I remember you guys talking about Bernie leaving.
He's the nicest guy in the world, very approachable. As a matter of fact, at one point in time, I did mention something to him about a particular legislator who shall remain nameless, who was in the news a lot. And what's interesting was Bernie put his hand over his mouth, sort of to essentially, so nobody else would hear it, and called him a expletive, which I
was it an orifice?
Which I thought was sort of funny, because here's the superintendent of the school district giving me his candid opinion about this particular politician, but that's a whole nother story. Okay, we're over, John. Bottom line.
Hey, that's okay. And we didn't get to talk about the fact that there is a proposal in the state legislature to rename Cuddleville the Windy City. It's not sponsored by Mark Matheson, though, because he's on the good guy side. I don't think Cuddleville is the Windy City. I don't think Weldon Spring is the Windy City. I don't know of a Windy City. I don't think we should name, following up on yesterday's show, I don't think we should name a city or a bridge after a living human being. I don't think Cuddleville is the Windy City.
John, you've just got me in more trouble.
What do you mean? W-I-N-D-Y. It's like a Chicago thing.
Oh, you're saying
like a little Chicago.
It's like you and I saying milk, right?
It's like us saying milk.
Right. Instead of milk, it's milk, right? Okay.
Yeah, this has been a joyous hump day together. We've covered a lot of ground.
Yes, maybe too much.
And you know what? I would love to stay and chat, but I got a little bit of ocean to munch through, Brad.
Hold on a minute. I'm keeping you in overtime for this. Here we go.
All right.
One more time.
And I don't think that plastic's going to affect a shark very much as they're munching their way through the ocean.
Remember that, Katy Perry. Okay, say goodbye, John.
See you tomorrow.